Hi, everybody. This is Jim Haviland. We're going to begin with an overview of concepts. What are the things that go into this tool? We talk about concepts, tools, and disciplines as part of how we think about the pedagogical method, the teaching and learning method within our operating system. So we always like to begin with the concepts. What are the things we have to understand together and agree upon before we can actually start using the tool set that we've laid out? So once again, this is the concepts, tools, and disciplines, the first part. First of all, we want to talk about standard work. Now, standard work is the collection of things that would happen on a regular basis. In the early parts of an organization, we probably don't have a lot of standard work, but we want to get to that. We want to be fighting for all the time having standard work, well organized, well understood, repeatable as all get out. And then we have rock work. This is the building and fixing of things within the organization. We want to be great at making sure we know what we're doing every day that has to go well for us to continue delivering for our customers, delivering for the organization. But then there's things that we're building and fixing, and we have to be doing both. So being really clear about when we're working on one or the other is part of the concepts here. But the responsibility chart, the org chart, the accountability chart, these are standard work tools. These are really defining standard work and maybe to some extent what types of rocks people will take on. But it's really the power of it is in getting real clarity on what standard work looks like. There's also a concept of generalists versus specialists. Some people are good at a lot of things, and they tend to like to have variety in their work. They tend to like to have the challenge of doing this and doing that, and it gives them a lot of energy, whereas some people, specialists, I want to just really focus. I want to just tell me where to go on this one thing, and I'm going to focus on that. And these are both kinds of people that we see on a regular basis. They both have value in different contexts. So we want to be clear with when we're designing our work, when we're designing our standard work, are we looking for a generalist? Are we looking for a specialist? And we'll talk about where those things lay out in the development, the stages of the organization. Early on, by the way, we're going to want a lot of generalists because we don't even know what specialists are supposed to be doing, and eventually we get to having a lot of specialists and even being very good at what kind of specialist we need to have. Generalist versus specialist. Leadership and mentoring, or some people call this leadership and mentoring. Some people call this leadership and management. We don't like the term management all that much because no one really likes to be managed. But we know that as part of being a leader in the organization, part of being someone that people are reporting to, part of your work has to be dedicated to advancing the people below us. We like to say we all have to be leaders, building leaders, building leaders. The idea that I'm not just teaching you what to do, but I'm helping you become a better contributor to the organization and ultimately a leader in the organization on your own right. Because what's going to happen eventually, we have to be great at delegating. We have to get to the place where some of what I'm doing today is going to be done by somebody else in the future as the organization becomes more structured and we build the infrastructure of a great organization. I'm going to be going to higher level and higher level work. That is the course of things. That is the standard way things go. So you have to dedicate time to advancing the people that are reporting to you. And we call that leadership and mentoring mostly in our organizations, in our operating system. Leadership and mentoring, we have great definitions of those things that we'll talk about at some point here in the conversation, but these things take time and you have to allocate time to those things. If you've got people reporting to you, you have to be creating leadership and mentoring time as part of that schedule. Everyone's role will change. That's the way it is, man. It's gonna change. Over time, you'll be doing something different. What's important to you, what's important to the organization for you to be doing, it's going to change over time. And these changes are going to come at pretty regular clips and places we can actually recognize. Like, for instance, at every stage of growth, every time the organization kind of moves up that ladder and we have this stages of growth model, as we continue to become a higher level organization with more and more capabilities, more and more market impact, we have to do a better and better job at defining roles, but your role in this organization is going to change, whether it's because you have to take on leadership roles or different things are important. I need you to specialize more. All these things lead to constant change in the organization. So making those changes can't be something you do occasionally. It should be something you're planning for, that you're optimizing for, that you're getting very, very good at. Every year, you should have a chance to look at your role and find out what are those things that I'm enjoying about my role? What are those things that really motivate me, that give me clarity and focus of work? We have a model for how we talk about what motivates people. And actually, Daniel Pink has a great book on this called Drive, on the things that lead to people being really interested and engaged in work. And part of that is that what you were doing last year that you got great at is probably not going to motivate you later on, because you want to be working towards mastery. It's one of the three components of it. I need to have some autonomy, I need to have some purpose, and I need to be working towards mastery. And once you master something, it means you're no longer working towards mastery. So even if everything else changes, even if everything else stayed the same, you're changing. So every year we're going to have to ask the question, is this still the job I want to be doing? Is it still the kind of job I really enjoy? And one of those other things is the market's going to change. Everything around you is going to change. For those of you, as I record this right now, there's a lot of talk and concern about how AI might change things. And there's certainly parts of your work that are drudgery that you should probably find time to move that over to an AI agent that does those things on your behalf under your guidance. And that AI might be better at it than you are, actually, because you're not loving that work. One of the things we know for sure is the things that people really love to do are the things they're going to be best at. So if there's parts of what you do that you don't really enjoy, there's a good chance that AI can do a better job at it. But either way, the market's going to change around you, and you should be thinking about that. You should be asking the questions. Is this really still important for me to do? Is there something that would be more valuable for me to do? Is there something that of a higher purpose that I should be adding to my world and removing something else? There are other tools. There's one in EOS called Delegate and Elevate. We like to say in our practice, delegate, elevate, automate, or eliminate. Those are really the options available to you. And having a regular cadence of looking at how the market changes or the business changes are forcing those things is a great way to think about things. Because everything changes, because we change, they change. So you're going to change what you're doing. And that's okay. That is the plan. Structure will need to change to get good at it. So we looked at that generic picture of an org chart there. Over time, we want to have the best organization, the best structure for what we're trying to accomplish right now. And the time frame we think about right now when we're talking about organizational structure change is the next 6 to 9 months. Sometimes we hear big corporations talking about their restructuring, but and sometimes we think about that as, oh, they must be in trouble. But in reality, even the best companies, best run companies, think about, hey, we need to think about a different structure to really take advantage of what's happening in the future. We need to skate to where the puck is going to be. 6 to 9 months from now, what do we need to be accomplishing? Maybe even further out than that. And what's the best structure to support that? So as you begin to grow your organization and get more effective at your organization, you're going to learn new things. Things around you are going to change. So you need to be able to change the structure of work in the organization. And part of that is the change management that goes along with that. So as a leader in the organization, getting very, very good at recognizing when a change needs to happen, thinking about what a new structure might look like that's beneficial, and then managing and getting everyone aligned to that change. So they're not concerned about their job, they're really concerned about the most important things, which is how do we really thrive in this moment? So standard work, let's go a little bit more into this. So each of these things we're going to go a little bit more depth here and give you some visual around this as well. So this is my little picture for standard work. There's 3 parts of standard work that we like to talk about. And there are 3 different tools within the tool belt. There's seat definitions. That is part of what we're going to talk about today in the videos that we're sharing about really getting good at defining that seat. That every one of those seats designed within an inch of its life, so we can be super clear with everybody about what is getting accomplished. Because this is quite often where problems happen when I'm not being a great leader or mentor or manager or coach or whatever we want to call it is because I haven't been really clear about what I want to have accomplished. And as a leader, you should always, when things go wrong, it's like, what did I miss out on? Quite often it's the seat definition. We talk about the KPIs or measurables. That's one of the great ways of being super clear about what being great at a seat is. So, hey, here's the things that are the 5 to 7 things, less is more until it's not things that I really want you to be great at in this seat, the things I want you to focus on, things I want you to own for the organization in that seat. The best way to make sure I'm being super clear about what that means is when I give you KPIs or measurables or some kind of dashboard that says, if you achieve these things, then we have agreement that you're doing a great job. And this is, by the way, a great way for us to know for ourselves whether we're doing a great job. So quite often there's KPIs that will report to other people, and there's other KPIs that are just going to report for ourselves. Am I doing a great job this week? Am I doing the things that I really wanted to get done? As a leader in the organization, you're more likely to have things that you don't share with anybody else, ways of measuring your performance in your roles to make sure that you are accomplishing what you need to accomplish week over week over week. Some of them are going to be activities, some are going to be outcomes, but you like to think about activities. Whole other set of teaching on grading KPIs, but it's part of the standard work definition is having KPIs. And there's process documentation. And this is, my friends, one of those things that doesn't get enough attention. People either come up with these really super long standard operating procedures, 40 pages that no one's ever going to read, or they simply don't write things down at all. Oh, it's different every time, Jim. We really can't have a procedure around this. And if that's what your feeling is, I invite you to join me for office hours. I'm sure I can break it down for you into something that can be documented. But we add a document process, and that's one of those things that's part of standard work. Are all the things that have to happen on a regular basis that we want to have happen the right best way every time, they should be documented very, very well. And someone needs to own that process. Everything in our system has an owner. Someone who's making sure that it gets looked at, gets updated, gets improved, gets questioned, and make sure it gets followed or achieved on a regular basis. So if we have these 3 things together, a really clear seat definition with really clear KPIs about what really accomplishing things in that seat mean, and then really well documented process, then that standard work is going to be really well constituted, and someone's going to be able to walk into that role. You can be hiring into that role and go, hey, I know exactly what to do tomorrow and the day after that and for time immemorial because I own making these things great. And even as they change, I own the changes. I own the updates to those things. And that makes for a really well constituted standard work definition. Because you really want to have agreements on these things. We talk about turning our expectations into agreements. And as people who hire people or manage people or lead people, we always have expectations. We may not be super clear what those expectations are. And that is our job. We have to be super clear with ourselves around our expectations. And the best way to translate those into understanding on the other side is to turn them into agreements. And quite often, the roles and responsibilities, KPIs, and process are part of the making super clear that we are, hey, you're going to do these things. You own these things. For this to work inside this organization, you need to follow this process. You need to accomplish it at a level that these KPIs define. You need to do this often. You need to do it with this level of quality, whatever we're using to measure the work itself. If we get those things figured out and get real clarity on those things, your standard work is going to go well. You're going to have repeatable process. You're going to have great outcomes on a regular basis. And everyone's going to be super happy because they know what being great at their job is all about. Last couple of things on this. First of all, you're probably familiar from other videos with this idea of the hierarchy of needs and the stages of growth. So we talk about this idea that every business goes through these stages of growth. And depending on where you are, your needs from the accountability chart, responsibility chart, the org chart are going to change in every one of these roles. And the survival stage, like we're probably not going to worry too much about structure, but we still really want to be clear about what's the most important work to be getting done. So we want to have great seat definitions. Sustainable stage, we're more likely to need a little bit of structure because we start to get to that place where we have a level or two within the organization. That's when structure really matters a lot. And we still want to be doing a great job with our roles and responsibilities, but we start to layer on additional types of people that are specialists in their roles. You'll notice at the survival stage, everyone's a generalist. They've got very general roles. Everyone wears a lot of hats. At the sustainable stage, part of what we're doing is putting that aside and starting to niche down what we're working on, find our target customer, find our best approach to product towards getting to that scalable stage. And scalable is where standard work really takes off, where I need to be able to do a lot of standard work. That's really the engine of growth for my business. I'm very profitable if I stay within the best standard work. So that's the idea of the sustainable stage. I'm trying to get that really clear for everybody so I can do it over and over and over again, that scalable stage. And then if we go on, we see a little bit more need for different types of leadership. And I just want to go over this for a second. At the very beginning, survival, we tend to have an SME founder, so a founder who's really good at something that they do. Great. And we want to build a business around that. So we tend to find general staff who can take on a couple of roles, and we build what we can out of that. And hopefully we survive to the sustainable stage. And by then we have an SME founder, a couple of specialist managers maybe, and some generalist staff. It tends to be what it is. Like, hey, I need someone who's really pretty good at marketing, or I need someone who's really good at delivering the operation, because I can't do all the nuts and bolts of it. Someone that can do that while everyone else is pretty much a generalist. Then we get to the place that's scalable. By and large, at that point, we've got a founder who has to become a leader, a CEO, an owner primarily, not the person that does stuff all day long. It's really the definition of getting to that scalable stage is when we take this founder, that owner, out of being the linchpin of everything getting done and be able to really running the business, not running the projects, not being the sole finder of new work. And then you have, in that scalable stage, we also have specialist managers. We're more likely to have specialists in those roles, a leadership team, and some specialist staff. You'll have people that are really they just do this one thing. As we keep climbing the ladder, we add more and more people. We got more of that going on. Eventually, at success, we've got leaders as specialists in leadership. That's becomes the thing we're doing. So we don't just have leaders. We have leaders who are great at being leaders. Like you have a controller maybe who's really good at the numbers and really good at compliance. But what makes them a CFO is when they know how to make money out of money, and they know how to have a staff to hire and inspire a staff below them that helps build that department out, that function out. And all of your managers need to get better and better at being great leaders. And eventually you have leaders that are superlative leaders, that great cultivators of talent, great finders of people. That's where we want to be. All right, so those are our concepts. We're going to come back and talk about the accountability by really getting clarity on roles and responsibilities.